nothing left for me to explain. Here's what you're getting, and I don't want to change. I don't want to change.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
It's easy feelings long to gain. They get by a minute into force. Oh, I didn't notice it's all getting full. But only when got been by chest, I done got here. I didn't think it'd ever come to a stop.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. We're hailing out of the East Kootenays this morning, and we're pretty socked in. We got a snow dump on us about 4 feet, it seems like last night. But that's always good because Christmas is just around the corner, and I hope that everybody's ready for Christmas. I am back from my trip to Vancouver, which was elating. Those legalization roundtables last week, people. I sat in a room with two of the most hardest hitting lawyers in Canada, who's Kirk Tusaw and John Conroy, and we zinged Health Canada. Between Philip Lucas and Sarah Campbell and John and Kirk and myself, we sat in a room full of Statistics Canada and public health and safety and all kinds of bureaucrats, veterinary associations, and we really put it to Health Canada. One of the questions I asked them was, when are you going to recognize marijuana as a medicine because of the problem with the gateway? So we'll get back into that a little more once we get into introducing who my guests are this week. This week we have Val back from Shatterizer, and I'm standing here with my Shatterizer in my hand right now, and it's an amazing tool for anybody to have, as well as I have Brent and Brooke from Danker.ca. And I also have Regan Ashby, who is also the founder of Thermodynamics Etropod Email. Sorry, guys. Had a hard time wrapping that around my tongue this morning. How is everybody this morning?
Great.
Good. The show's going to be a little bit of a cluster this morning, people, just because I've got 4 other guests on for the first time ever, which is kind of exciting. So I'm going to introduce Brent and Brooke first from Danker.ca. Hi, guys. How you doing this morning?
Good. How are you? Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on my show. So introduce yourselves and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So we started Danker because we found that there wasn't a lot of good information going out about what was specifically going on in Toronto. So we created this site because there wasn't good information, and so we tried to curate the information people were looking for. So the events going on in the city, what was happening with the dispensaries, what products were good across the city. So we started specifically a year and a half ago, and just been building ever since.
So specifically for the Toronto area and what goes on in the events, there's a lot that goes on in Toronto. Being out, I'm in BC, but I'm out in Cranbrook, BC, which is like 12 hours from Vancouver. So being said, a lot of stuff doesn't get education, events, that kind of stuff. We don't hear that across Canada. So that's a great thing to have, a great educational portal, which is kind of like what I do here too, in a way. Like, I think that's which is great about the whole aspect as a community, that we can all come together and share information and education. So are either of you patients, or are you just enjoy cannabis, or let's get into your background a little bit?
Yeah, we're both medical patients now. Brent, started a YouTube channel probably like 4 years or so ago now. just sharing information, just answering questions about cannabis, trying to get good information out there, try to be the change I want to see. And then after I graduated university, trying to find a job was hard. And so with the cannabis industry really starting to open up at the beginning of 2016, we started to look at how we could legally get involved with the industry and grow with it. And so from that, we started to research the industry and find ways we could be involved in it. And it was hard to find out what was going on in the city. And so we tried to create the resource we were looking for. So that's how I got into it myself. Yeah, at the same time that Brent was coming back from university, I was in a corporate sales gig that I didn't like. I was depressed. I was using cannabis to treat the depression, and I just was unhappy there. Was looking for a change, and so we decided, hey, we're brothers. Let's help this community. Let's try and do our part.
That's awesome, because that's really how I think many of us come together, as we start out, because cannabis does bring people together, doesn't it? Like in reality, like that's how many of us get started. We see either a bad law that we don't want to, that we don't like. We're either patients. We're trying to find education on what's good for us, different strains, different tools to use. So that's great that you guys are involved in educating people, because let's face it, this is a vast country and there are little pockets of activism and people everywhere. And it's great to get that. I've been to Toronto a couple times, and I mean, it's just overwhelming for somebody like myself that comes from a small town. You walk into the city and it's like, whoa! Like even going to Vancouver was like, it's almost like a culture shock almost, right? So do you guys have a storefront or anything, or do you guys just work from home, or how do you guys get your product, or do you have products, or what do you guys like? I'm sorry, I'm not as I did a little bit of research last night, but your website's down, so I couldn't find a lot of research on you guys. So sorry if I sound a little uneducated on what you guys, other than you're just your website for educational that you do.
Yeah, no worries. We get that question a lot. Like, how do you operate? Like, we don't do products. We have T-shirts. I have a good high school friend who actually helped us down Anchor, who helped us get, who does a T-shirt business out in Hamilton. So he helps us, and we do T-shirts, but we mainly like give them away or sell them at events. It's not really the main thing we do. We mainly just focus on the education and getting the good word out there and letting people know. We do have advertising. That's our revenue source, but we run it out of our home. But that
Excellent.
said, we do get to go out and do stuff. Like the Project Gator trial happened this week. We were out there all day Monday. And then there's a lot of events in this city that we're constantly going out to and writing up as well.
So basically you're just out there doing media. Like that's great, because that's the thing. We don't have a lot of media outlets that actually hear our sides of the story, right? And that's why we do what we do too here at Lifestyle Radio, as well as, pushing out education to patients. I know my podcast alone here at this station has a lot of listeners that are just patients, because we bring experts on too, and talk to people about all kinds of different avenues that you can either use, get in touch with, find a doctor, and those are the main things that patients really need. So kudos to you guys for doing that. So you were out at the Project Gator case on Monday. So you were at Mark and Jody's trial, end of trial, plea, whatever, sentencing, I guess is what that was on Monday. What's your thoughts on how that all went down?
I think it's mixed personally, because when you have 5 different individuals involved, everyone has their own interest in what they're looking for. Where Mark Emery was more interested in going to jail rather than paying $150,000 fine. Well, $200,000 all total. Yeah, with surcharge, victim surcharge fees, which people aren't exactly sure what that is. So Mark came out of it disappointed that he had that huge fine, where other people would say that's a victory because he didn't have to go to jail. But
no one got jail sentences, and the big win was that 17 other individuals in cannabis culture cases had all their charges dropped, which was a total of 180 charges. So that saves a lot of court time, fees, and hassles. So that's another big win. But it's hard to say exactly that everything's amazing and great, because they'll still have probation. They're still limited to what they can and can't do. But it definitely could be a lot worse. So it's a mixed blessing.
Yeah, they won't be able to, in their conditions for the next like
a year and a half to 2 years,
they won't be able to be involved in an illegal dispensary is one of their conditions. But also now that they've pleaded guilty, they probably won't be able to get involved in the legal industry. So,
well, that was something that was brought up at the roundtables on Thursday, or last week Thursday, about criminal records and how it's leaving people out of the industry and how it would actually lead people to stay in the black market. So I'm not saying Health Canada is going to change that, because I don't know for sure, but I know that this was a consultation that we were at. So proposals are going to be written up. And that was one point that John Conroy made a number of times, that just because you have a previous criminal record or have been involved in, previous cultivation charges or trafficking charges, that shouldn't leave you out of the industry. Because let's face it, lots of us have got criminal records, myself included. I was caught trafficking 4 grams in the mail a little over, 10 years ago. And I have a trafficking charge for 4 grams of marijuana in the mail. I did 6 months conditional sentence. It was no fine and probation for me. I actually was on house arrest for 3 months. The variations, and that was in Alberta as well though, right? So the variations of how sentencing and how the laws are interpreted across this country is almost appalling, because they all had previous charges, except for Jody and Brittany. Brittany had previous charges too. Jody's the only one that hadn't been previously charged. So it is a blessing that they did walk away with no jail time, because let's face it, Mark has done plenty of jail time. Chris has been in jail as well. So that being said, it is a blessing. I mean, the fines are exuberant, but let's face it, it's not like they can't afford to pay those fines. They've made millions of dollars. And yes, they've given millions of dollars away, but let's put it this way, if that fine was slapped on someone like myself, I'd never be able to pay that off. So, there's many people out there like Jerry Martin too, as well as still fighting for, Niagara Cannabis Club. There's still many court cases across this country that have to be looked at. Let's bring Reagan in. We'll introduce you now to Reagan, and because he's been sitting there so nicely, not saying a thing. Sorry, Reagan.
Okay.
He's with Thermodynamics. Introduce yourself, and let's hear what you have to say about yourself and where you come into the industry.
Sure. My name is Reagan Ashby, and yes, I am the president of thermodynamics.ca, and we manufacture Entropy e-nails. We launched just over 2 years ago as a website here in Toronto, an online head shop. And then about a year into that, we decided to start manufacturing our own e-nails for dabbing. And now it's a year and a half later, and we've got about 300 of our e-nails out there, and we've just started a new production run of another 200. So that's where we are.
That's excellent. Well, that's something that I know that many patients use, because of the fact that there's no torch, no fire. I don't personally have an e-nail myself. I've got a shatterizer. But I don't have any.
That's kind of going. Theirs is the portable version, and ours is the at-home version.
Absolutely, and that's the nice thing about the difference, is that you can have portable units and at-home units. I know, the dab bars in some of the places of the vape lounges that I've been in to use them, and they're terrific. I know the first one I ever seen was a sublimator, but it's a little different of a unit, right?
Yeah, that was the first one I ever saw as well, the sublimator for sure. They are similar to us, but they're a little bit different. I mean, we're in very different price ranges, but I respect the sublimator, and I like those guys. I've met them a few times. they're just more the upper end of the market. They a lot of their pieces come with their own glass, which is pretty cool. Whereas our emails are priced considerably lower, but they don't come with their own glass, and they don't have the same atomizer or sublimator that the sublimator has itself. But in my opinion, they're pretty similar. They get the similar job done.
Absolutely. Now,
Tamarijuana, we actually have one set up, and we have been passing around 2 Shatterizers, one loaded with a lovely sativa from Dog Pound, the other one with a nice indica from some of our friends out in Peterborough. Hey, guys. And we're just topping off our coffee. And the wonderful thing is the 4 of us actually met when we starred in a movie that was made for thermodynamics. And you can actually check that out on the Facebook page. And I will put that up after the show. So you can check out some real creative. I believe I might have been known as a duck. And perhaps, guys, do you want to talk about your roles?
It's hard. I think I played a few roles. It's hard to remember.
We've been lucky enough to do a few of these videos. The thermodynamic videos are always great. Reagan just has the idea of let's put a whole bunch of color and splash and let's get people's attention. So we've done things where it's from like first person perspective, and you're like running around using Nerf guns to shoot laser beams. It's too much fun.
He's he's really great with the green screen too. I mean, it's pretty. Like, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, it's just.
Well, let's stop you. Let's stop you guys right there, and we'll take you up after the break, so we can not have to break it up at all. Sound good?
Great.
So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with everybody. So I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, MUM, the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, and the Haley Rose Foundation. We'll be right back after the song.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on the Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I gotta get myself out of this town, and I don't know where I'm gonna be found. This time's for sure. I gotta get up, get out, and get down. This I know. I'm sick of waiting lately, laying around. It's time to make moves. I got to hit the road. Gotta find something better for me. I got to prove, not to you, but me. I can be where I wanna be. I don't know where my head is. I don't know where I'm heading, but I've already made up my mind. I got to bounce. I'll see you around somewhere on down the line. For now, peace out, sayonara. I'll see you later, alligator. Adios, take it easy, goodbye. Oh, I'll catch you on the flip side. Can I get more out of this life? Yes or a no? Yes or a no? Cause this ain't what I planned it like. I imagine more. So I'm gonna say at this time I got to roll. It's been a pleasure entertaining tonight. Sorry to speak and run, yo, it's been real fun, but I gotta bid you adieu. It's nothing you did, it just is what it is. The kid got a whole lot of shit to do. I'm feeling that inspiration, rejuvenation, like we roll into one. So aloha, hallucination, I can almost taste my freedom. So I'm saying, peace out, sayonara, see you later, alligator, adios, take it easy, goodbye. Oh, wow, catch you on the flip side. Peace out, sayonara, see you later, alligator, adios, take it easy, goodbye. Oh, wow, catch you on the flip side. I got this feeling like you wouldn't believe. It's turning into more than a pet peeve. I got people to see, I got places to be, so I'ma make like a tree and leave. I got this feeling like you wouldn't believe. It's turning into more than a pet peeve. I got people to see, I got places to be, so I'ma make like a tree and leave. Peace out, sayonara, see you later, alligator, adios, take it easy, goodbye. Oh, wow, catch you on the flip side. Peace out, sayonara, see you later, alligator, adios, take it easy, goodbye. Oh, wow, catch you on the flip side.
All right, and we are back with Val, Brent, and Brooke, and Regan. So over the break, you guys were squirreling and I was squirreling. I'm talking way too fast today. I put some green crack in my shadowizer and I should have never done that. Makes me squirrely. Sorry, everybody. So we're back with everybody. So we were talking with Regan over before the break, and we'll get back to what we were talking about, Regan, about the whole situation that we were talking about.
Cool. Right. Right. So just promotional videos. It's been fascinating for me to learn over the past 2 years what social media users want and what they'll scroll by and what they'll actually spend a few seconds watching. And I have learned a lot. I mean, at first I used to have videos that were like 3.5 minutes with my logos at the beginning. And they've really kind of evolved into videos that are usually less than a minute, if not less than 45 seconds. No logos at the beginning. They just kind of jump right into the action. And it's just trying to grab attention on news feeds when people are scrolling, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. You really just have to grab their attention to begin with. And most of my videos are pretty indicative of that. They're really nonsensical, but they are certainly visually appealing, which is what I'm going for, just to get the brand name out there. And we've been doing videos. We did a video with we've done a couple videos with Banker. We did a video where Val was in the shot with Shadowizer hat. So cross branding is also good as well.
Right.
First video
So
I've ever been, actually.
So you guys finding that it's easy to break in with branding in the industry, or are you finding that to be a bit difficult?
It's not difficult. It's just been a fascinating challenge, as I said. You really have to figure out what people want. And that has been a really fun experience, learning that. And I'm not saying I have any idea yet, but I'd like to think I'm a bit better than I was 2 years ago. Just for example, I used to start all my videos off with my logos, and they'd be there for like 5 seconds. It looked professional, and I thought it was cool. But the reality is that when people are scrolling through thousands of videos and pictures a day, they don't want to wait those 3 seconds for your logo, so they just scroll right by. So I've just stopped putting my logo at the beginning of videos, and that is really, as soon as I stopped putting my logo at the beginning of videos, my views skyrocketed, simply because people don't have time for your logos at the beginning of your videos. It's amazing.
So what's your best advice for somebody who, say, is trying to break in to the industry through branding or has a product that they're trying to get into market? What's your best advice to them?
Well, from what I've learned, I'd say like social media is a really great way and a free way to advertise. Things like Facebook and Instagram don't allow thermodynamics. They probably don't allow Danker or Shadowizer to advertise because of the industry. I was able to put $2,000 into Facebook advertising until they realized that I was a marijuana affiliated company, and that's when they shut my advertising account down. However, that really spurred in me a lot of creativity because I thought, okay, I have to get people's attention now, and I can't simply pay them to get my attention. So if you're going to be doing media or promotion or marketing in the marijuana industry, at least for the next 6 months, while it's still technically illegal, I would say just try to grab people's attention and get your brand in there. It's like any advertising, you know, it's get somebody's attention, get your logo in there, and get out.
Right. I know that was something that was also brought up at the roundtables last week, that there was a woman from Nishi, Canada, and they're having issues with even being able to advertise for cannabis education. And she had brought that up with Health Canada, that the CRT is not allowing any like radio ads or anything, but out here, like Tamarack dispensaries out here on our radio stations are advertising. Our bong store out here has a radio advertising on our mainstream radio. So when she was saying that they aren't allowing this to happen, like I said, out here, I'm hearing it on my radio station, both, like I said, the dispensary. You know, exactly. That's what I thought. Woohoo! Like, let's get this mainstream, right? Like, let's face it, but then again, I'm reading this morning that the July 1st deadlines might be pushed back, and I understand that because of the fact that the way it's sitting in Senate, and then they have to roll down to the provinces. Like I said, we'll kind of go back to where I was last week too, because of the fact that this includes you, because you're breaking into the industry with tools, right, which are mechanical. They did state through Health Canada that the volcano and any vaporizing was not going to be brought in. That was one huge thing that was talked about quite a bit. It was about the vaporizer, the handheld vaporizer, the extraction, and how much of the level of extraction of THC, but the actual tool, and how Health Canada is covering volcanoes, right? So there are certain vaporizers that they already are seeing, and you know, and how they're using that tool, and then bringing in the handheld vaporizers. There was a couple of people from the licensed producer that were really pushing the handheld vaporizer, that how it's beneficial, how it's non-intrusive, the smell, because that's one thing many people complain about is the smell of cannabis, right? With the vaporizers and the extraction. So that was something that was just for you guys being in that part of the industry, that was brought up at the roundtables, that they're really pushing, that they want to see that be something that's covered by insurance, and also that the patients are having access to it without the illegality to it. And like I said, because of the marketing. We also brought up the fact that the banks are shutting down bank accounts for people that are in industry already, and that we stress the point that this is an entrepreneurial business. Like, it's new to everybody. This is a brand new industry in Canada, and how they're shutting down entrepreneurs, right? People that really might not even be involved smoking, non-consumers that are looking, like, let's face it, we have government officials, ex-RCMP, in the licensed production area already. And I think that's something that, as coming into a new industry, for you even to have to look at for advertising, branding, everything that goes along with what we're looking at for July, right? And it's going to be huge. I think we're trying to get a grasp about how huge this is, but when we're going to have over 200 plus licensed producers, and then there's going to be private stores in some provinces, I've said this over and over again, it's going to be a patchwork quilt of what we've got for regulations going across this country. Now, I don't know I know that shatter you guys ship across the country because it's a tool. It's not got residue. I don't think you have any residuals with mailing, right? But when it comes down to the actual product, so that was something else that was brought up at the roundtables, was the levels of THC in the extraction and how they want to cap it at 3%. And it is explained to them that if you lower it down, that the internal medium that actually has to be put in to cut the oil is toxic when smoked. And in your vaporizers, right? Like, you know what it's like if you have a bad extraction that doesn't have everything taken out of it properly, it's not tested, it'll explode. Like, you know, when you get that crackling and that popping, and I don't know about if you find that, but in some smaller areas in Canada, patients that don't have the exact education that they need to actually get rid of the residue that's in their extraction, you find that snapping and crackling. And that's something that Health Canada is concerned about. more so than the actual level of THC or whatever cannabinoid CBD in the actual product. It's the flavoring. It's the the carrier, whether it's the oil or whatever glycerin that's being mixed in with some of these extractions to lower that level. So I know with my Shatterizer, I don't find that, but I know with the e-nail, do you find the e-nail will really show you, Regan, what your product has got in it?
Well, I mean, yeah, especially with like the quartz banger, it's a little dish. So if you're putting in your extract and there's a lot of things in there that are foreign matter that aren't necessarily what you want, they will probably be left over in the bowl. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the tar and any kind of residue like that.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest things patients are wanting to, find. Like, I know there's a lot of testing because the labs were also at this round table. MB Labs was also there from the island. And how many tests they do on the extraction and the formulations that I'm not a scientist. I can't wrap my head around formulations, but these labs are testing these extracts specifically for that. So with your product, like with your levels of heat, I guess, does the e-nail have a heat level where you can set it for a heat level or?
Well, yeah, you can really set it anywhere from 0 to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit if you want. So, and that's the best part of the e-nail is that you can do low temp dabs, medium temp dabs, or high temp dabs. And I've heard a couple studies recently that said if you dab over 750 Fahrenheit, that's when carcinogens are released. So I don't know. I guess if you stay below 750, you're going to be healthier than if you're above 750.
Right.
And also, I think that there should be regulations in the extract industry simply just to keep it safe. So if you're an extract maker, you may have to prove every few months to Health Canada that your product doesn't contain, foreign matter like butane and metals and stuff that shouldn't be in there. So
exactly
if there is a regulatory system in place for extracts, then I don't think anybody has anything to worry about. I'm sure they test alcohol. I mean, I don't really know how it works, but they don't just let you put something on the market.
Well, here's something that was brought up at that. The fact that they're going to want to be warehousing in BC. Okay, so it'll go from the licensed producer like they do with liquor, right? And then it's going to be warehoused and then distributed. And the point was made that why should they have to warehouse when it's already vaulted at the licensed production site? And the reasoning that Health Canada come out with this is because they do random testing, even though it's tested at the licensed production before it's left. If it's warehoused, then they can do random testing there because quality control might not be at the high, like at the level, say something slipped through the cracks at the licensed production level. This was something that they don't want happening. A lot of the licensed producers are kind of saying, well, why? What's the purpose? Because of the fact we're already testing and vaulting and warehousing. Cannabis has a shelf life. It's perishable. You don't want to leave it in the warehouse too long. Mm-hmm. But Health Canada's point was, and this happened with alcohol, that in a warehouse situation, they randomly tested some gin and found bad gin at the warehouse level where they didn't find it at the actual at the brewing level, right? Even though it had gone through quality control. That's their whole stance on warehousing, so they can do a specific actual more testing of the cannabis product. The reasoning by Health Canada for another year on extractions and year on edibles is the FDA, because it's so hard to pass even a food product through, because of the specific testing and stuff. They want to make sure that they're being diligent on edible products and extractions. That's their reasoning as to why they want to wait another year past legalization to introduce these products to market. And it's not going to change for medicinal or for recreational. It'll be the same timeline for both. So even though you're a patient, you're not going to be able to legally purchase edibles for another year past. You know what I'm saying? They still have, like I said, there's a lot of work still left to be done, right? When it comes to, exuberating and getting past the testing. And like I said, when you're sitting in a room full of people with Stats Canada, specifically on health standard, public, ministries for road safeties and health safety, and these people sat back and didn't say a lot. They just kind of sat and listened to what everything that was being said. But I know a lot of patients are worried. But let me be clear. The Health Canada has stated that the medical program is not going anywhere, that patients will still be able to access medicine through the means that they have through doctor's prescription. There will be some changes to the program. I can't say this is for fact because, again, we were in consultation and there's still going to be written proposals accepted until the 20th of January. But they're going to look at doing an online interactive application where the patients can send their doctor's signature in and then fill the application out online. And rather than having them have to send it all back, if there's any amendments that have to be made, they would do it online. So it would save paper and speed up processing, which is one good, I thought was great. Another thing that they're looking at as well is right now when you apply for Health Canada for your ACM PR, you get it back and it's stated for the time your doctor signed it. So that you're, and let's face it, it's taking 9 months sometimes to get those licensing. So you're only left with a 3-month gap to grow. And that's where I was left at, right? What they're going to look at now is changing it to not the date of the doctor's signature, but from the time they finished processing and it gets in the mail. So say it takes them 9 months, your application could be there for 9 months. Your license would come back dated the time they sent it rather than the date the doctor signed it. So that was another positive thing that they brought up at the tables, as well as they're going to cut out storage limits. And John Conroy pointed out again the 150 gram limit for travel. So these are things that were brought up specifically for the medical program that they've already looked at for changing. Excuse me. Honestly, I've said this to people before, and I'll say it again. The wait time for Health Canada really came down to people. They had cut back that department so badly through the last 10 years of the Harper government that there was literally, Eric held up his hand, there was actually 5 people working in that department. So when you've got people for license production, needing their licensing being done, and then you've got 100,000 patients wanting their licensing done, and you have 5 people trying to struggle through that. So they've hired some more people, we were told, which is terrific. Probably not as many as they need, but they did get, and they've been given some money for the first time ever. Health Canada has never received any money extra money from the government. And they're getting $41 million, which will help bring in more employees and help speed up and change things in the department. Maybe they'll get a new lamination machine, because that's something for years we have heard that we didn't get our cards back with our pictures because the lamination machine was broken. So with any luck, maybe they'll get a new lamination machine. Okay, well, and that being said, I guess I've talked my way on to another break. I'm sorry, you guys. So we're going to go to a break again, and we'll be, my sponsors are thanking 12 High Chicks Magazine, the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, and the Haley Rose Foundation. And our song is going to be The Roots of It by Oon Benton. We'll be right back.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. This is the cannabis song. Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. This is the cannabis song. If you know the roots of it, then you will find the truth in it. If you know the roots of it, then you will make use of it. They have been hiding the truth for so long, trying to tell the people using the herb is so wrong. It has been here since 10,000s of years. Now is the time to drive away those fears. Come on, people, open up your ears. That's why we're singing it loud and clear. If you know the roots of it, then you will find the truth in it. cannabis song. But Molly said, excuse me, while I light my split, knowing that the cannabis is a precious gift. Because they told us so many lies. To some people this might be a surprise. To see my split as a blessing in disguise. Time for the herb to win the Nobel Prize. If you know the roots of it, then you will find the truth in it. If you know the roots of it, then you will find the truth in it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is the cannabis song. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is the cannabis song. So I beg you, do not turn youths into criminals by declaring something good into illegal. It is helpful, it is useful, it is natural, and for your meditation inspirational. Known all over the world, it's international. From the Rasta man down to the cardinal, they use it as a holy sacrament, well spiritual. The only crime about it, it's still illegal. If you know the roots of it, then you would make good use of it. 'Cause if you know the roots of it, then you will find the truth in it. Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. This is the cannabis song. Hey, hey, yeah.
Okay, we are back with everybody from Danker.ca and the Thermal Mail and Shatterizer. And over the break, we were discussing a little bit about what levels of advertisement limitations were going to be on within the new industry. And there was some restrictions that they were talking about, mainly the non-packaging for children. That was something that was huge. Philip Lucas brought up the fact that they weren't going to put unicorns on it. And then Kurt Chusaw actually brought up a picture of a beer can that had a unicorn on it. So again, because of the alcohol and the cannabis, the way they're going to want to be selling it through the LCBOs and the liquor format kind of thing, it's not going to be exactly the same, but the restrictions for advertising are going to be pretty strict. There'll be no like nothing that's appealing, right? It's going to be pretty generic. So I'm not sure what they're going to do as far as online. They didn't really talk so much about online social media restrictions for advertising, but specifically like, TV ads, I think will be like, you don't see any alcohol anymore, and tobacco. The same type of restrictions and warnings putting on the label as tobacco. Not, of course, the same, but whatever the harms are, which I don't know what they're going to find, except for I made the point they had the great big, it was flashing on the screen, keep out of the reach of children. And I brought up, what about the children that use it, that need the CBDs for seizures? They have they had no answer. They kind of brushed me off when it came to that question.
We were talking to our grandmother, and like I was talking about like the side effects. I was like, the side effects people talk about are like, oh, it can make you feel hungry, it can make you feel tired. But to a cancer patient, those are the benefits, and other things can be the side effects. That it's such a versatile tool. It fits everyone else that like you can't really call something a side effect that could be of value to someone else. So that's a very interesting point.
Well, yeah, and you're right about that. So your grandma is on board with you guys doing what you're doing then? That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, our whole family's on support.
She loves the creams. She just had her 93rd birthday. She loves the creams.
That's excellent, because that's what we're hearing a lot of times, is that our seniors, they're really, getting into the topicals. And that another thing, that we really did research that needs to be done, the testing, right, to make sure that everything is safe. And I think that's the main thing that all of us want. We just want safe products. We want something that's not going to blow up in our faces. We want something that's going to be effective, but we also want something that we know that's not going to hurt or harm us. And, and same with the tools that we use, like, the extensive, I'm sure, research that you've all done on your product, like the e-nail, the Shatterizer, the protocol, all the, stuff that you have to do when you're trying to bring the product to market. And I think public safety is the main goal for all of us when it comes to our, any product you're using. So Val, let's see what you've been doing lately. You've been in the background pretty much the whole show. So what have you been doing this last week there, lady?
Well, it's been an exciting week, and we're so excited all to be sitting here and shadowrizing and drinking coffee and joining you all together in person. So happy holidays, everyone. There's been some cool moves recently here in in the Shadowrizer office, and we are now at the Hot Box Cafe. We made it into the Stoner Gift Guide in Now Magazine, which is just an amazing placement and introduction to us in our homegrown Toronto market. And we're so thrilled to be there. And we're so thrilled to be in Now Magazine. So you should pick one up and head over to the Hot Box Cafe and, lounge around a little bit, maybe do some shopping because it is the season. Another neat thing is out in the States, we're in MaryJane.com as a great gift to ship to your friends in illegal states. Because, if we look at the way things are changing in Canada, there are also a lot of big changes in the U.S. And if you looked at kind of what was going on in Colorado over packaging and things like that, and watching the medicinal and recreational develop, it was like a wink and a nod and a giant green cross. You just knew where products were because there was a green cross somewhere, and things came in packaged bags, no harm, no foul. If you were into the cannabis, if you were in the medicinal movement, or, there's another door if you want to hit up the rec market. So there are going to be so many wonderful options that are going to develop, and I'm kind of excited because that means that a lot more people are going to be feeling more comfortable. That means that, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for a whole bunch of new businesses. And I got to tell you, I kind of depend on Danker for Toronto events. I mean, if you check out danker.ca and then head over to their events section, there's 5 or 6 things. We got to think we're kind of lucky here being based in Toronto, because there's 5 or 6 cool things to do almost every single night in Toronto. And if you think about if you think about even last week, Danker had their party. So if you guys want to chat a little about that was a lot of fun. You guys had your Christmas party, didn't you, at the lounge?
We went out to Hamilton Vape over the weekend for the Buzz Baskets Christmas party. We were sponsoring that. We gave some T-shirts there. That was a blast.
Yeah, and we were there too. I had my picture taken with Rasta Claus. I'm not sending that one out till Christmas Day. You guys can just wait on that one. But we also wanted to say, what was really cool about the Buzz Baskets. Actually, you know what? On Shadowrizer Facebook, we have an awesome shot of the Buzz Baskets basket giveaway that included one of the awesome Danker T-shirts and a whole photo album of kind of the party there. So why don't you check that out? And thank you, Anthony Foster, for hosting that. That was amazing. Chronic Creations was also there, and they baked some delicious treats. We have some pictures there too. So yeah, I mean, there are so many events coming up and going on over the next couple weeks with the holidays. One more thing.
That's excellent.
Kind of some neat news to marijuana. We're in Germany now. The Shadowrizer landed. All of our, we had a really a nice sized order. We're officially there in Germany, and we got a beautiful write up on the Germany Namaste website. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, if you get a chance, and if you know anyone who speaks German, I mean, Google Translate can only do so good. I mean, it's a beautiful review, though.
That's awesome. And what other news do you have? Something else you were telling me about last week that has come to pass too?
Well, we're in the Mary Jane, and I'm going to share that article to our friends in the States.
Excellent.
And it's wow, wow, wow. It's actually Snoop Dogg's gift guide, which is kind of cool.
That's excellent. That's so excellent. So that's great news for Shatterizer and everybody that needs, a really good tool. I will recommend the Shatterizer to everybody. Like I have nothing bad to say about it. I've used many tools. This one is awesome for portable, no smell, very easy to use. The shatter cap cover is amazing, keeps it so it's not glooby, globby, and easy to access. So if you want to get a hold of your Shatterizer, you can go to www.shatterizer.ca and order one up. And if you use the hashtag Tamarijuana with a capital T, you will be able to get a free globe or a free ceramic bowl, I believe is what we're offering with my hashtag, right, Val?
Yeah, that's right. Just through shatterizer.ca.
Excellent. So what's coming up this next week, Danker.ca, in you guys out in Toronto? What events are going on in Toronto this week?
This week, tomorrow, there is at Planet Paradise, there's the regular farmers market. They do that every week. That's always a good event. It's always super crowded in there.
There's always a bunch of ganja yoga going on, and there's ganja comedy shows over at the Underground Cafe. So those are great. Those go on 4 times of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joey's great. Joey's great.
She is great. I love, it's great to hang out there. We went there, the first time I went there was for Brent's birthday, 2 or 3 years ago. And it was just a blast. There's also free grow class tonight at Grow Up Hydroponics. That's nice. With everyone's going to be able to grow soon, so start learning.
That's right. I mean, that's excellent. There are so many things going on. And back to the Underground Cafe. Joey, I've been to the Underground Cafe once, and it's an amazing place to go, and she always has lots going on there, as well as all the vape lounges. I know that Vapor Central often has Mike Rita. He was there last week, I guess. He's awesome. I've seen Mike out in Vancouver. He's terrific for comedy as well. I wish you guys were here or I was there, because Cranbrook is not even close to remotely sounding as exciting as what you guys got going on out there. We don't have any events planned this week. And that's, the unfortunate thing about living in, smaller communities. So as you guys gather, across the country, there's people all across this country. Please take time to, reach out to people in your own communities and see if you can't gather together and even just have coffees, support groups, anything that might be able to bring patients and the cannabis community together in your area, because, legalization will take the stigma away. And I think that's one thing we all want, is just the stigma of people that use cannabis as, for medicine, or just enjoy cannabis, the plant itself, the community. There's no stopping, once legalization comes, for the industry, for people, and the freedom that that we're hoping to see. So that being said, I'd like to thank you all again for being on the show. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, I was going to say, I think we should keep in mind too that we are a conscious industry, that we should be looking to work with people who think the same way we think like. And I've just been thinking about it since we were talking about one of the best ways to get together. We are all entrepreneurs in this industry, is, work together, collaborate.
Absolutely. And unity, that being said, it is, Christmas time, and, the goodwill spirit going out. I know Amy just finished with her homeless cookies and cannabis campaign that she does every year. It was, again, successful this year. Amy's an amazing woman out in Toronto that does lots of great things. She runs the Can Do dispensary out there. So big shout out to Amy Brown. I love her to death. There's, like I said, there's always somebody out in our community doing good for other people. And it's always good to say thank you. And I'd like to thank you for being on my show, and thank Val and Matt for sending me the best vaporizer pen I've ever had. And I guess it's basically to wrap it up and wish everybody a Merry Christmas, as well as Happy Holidays, because we probably won't be back till next week, which will be after Christmas, which next Wednesday is after Christmas. And just wish everybody a happy holidays. And thanks to my listeners, because if it wasn't for my listeners, I wouldn't have a show. And if it wasn't for guests, I wouldn't have a show. And if it wasn't for Al, I wouldn't have a show. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening to Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana over the last year and a half. And thank you guys for being on. And Val, you want to do some more shout outs?
I just want to say thank you so much at LRAP. I want to say thank you so much at Tamarijuana, and thanks guys for coming over for some coffee and cannabis.
And Regan, we're sorry if we left you out most of the show. Sorry about that. we just get yapping away, and but thanks for being on the show too, Regan.
Check out the pictures. We've been live tweeting through the whole show, so you can kind of see what happened.
Right, Regan. Do you want to shout out your website so that people if they want to get an email, they can find you?
Yeah, sure. It's thermodynamics with an X at the end .ca, and the emails are called Entropy Emails.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, for being on my show. And we'll wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and whatever you celebrate, enjoy your family over the holidays. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual